Yeah, for me, somehow this path, for me, from whatever age, at least from teenage times, at least from 15, 16, whatever, it's been constant shedding, constant offloading, constant getting rid of things just falling off. They could be parts of yourself, parts of your personality, psychology, elements of your life, people in your life, situations in your life, all of these different things. But for me, this has been one of the main ongoing, parts of this path. And for me, this reference with this name, data, and all of this imagery, and just it just seems completely unnecessary now. Because when I talk about this data or whatever, anyway, even if I was going to talk about Shiva or Shakti or Allah or anything like this, or God or whatever like this, I'm only really referring to life, just what is, what exists. So I prefer this kind of spirituality, which is kind of direct and to the point. That's not symbolic. A lot of us love this symbolic spirituality where we say one thing but it means another thing. But for me, maybe I'm simple-minded. These things can be quite confusing. And with these things as well, we also run the risk of confusing the symbol for the reality, right? How many, when we talk about all this Hindu gods, for instance, or whether we talk about whatever, the way this monotheistic people address God, how many of these people are kind of in the ballpark aiming at what that actually is, and how many people are just aiming at an idea, a concept, an image. Some people even make this image of God or whatever their chosen deity or their guru or whatever as a very convenient image, right? You get some of these preachers like this, these evangelical preachers like this in the USA, for instance, that are like this, and whatever they've got to say about God or whatever, it's very convenient and well tailored to the way that they live their lives and the way that they like to exploit people, exploit the gullibility, naivety of people. And it's not a case of innocence here. It's not a case that people's innocence is exploited in these cases. You know, this thing called gullibility, naivety, a lot of this is there, especially as we get older, because and we can be duped and we can be fooled and we can be misled. These things remain there in place because we don't want to go into the real depths of life. We don't want to go into the real depths, the dark crevices, abysses of ourselves. And this, when we don't do this, this creates a lot of blind spots. The blind spot when when you're driving a car, it's the place that you can't see with your mirrors. So, and that's the liable, that's the place, if you don't check the blind spot, that's the place where you're liable to someone to get crash or have an accident or whatever. So, likewise, these blind spots that we have in life, these are where our accidents or our tragedies usually happen. And because these spots remain blind to us, these things we call them as accidents and tragedies and disasters and this and that, because we don't know we don't know where they've come from, right? Imagine blind spot or whatever you have in the car, you don't know it exists, you never check it, and then some one day something comes flying into that blind spot. You think, oh, it just something has just come out of, you know, out of wherever, or an asteroid has hit me or something like that, because we haven't explored that area, that part of ourselves. So we've got no idea what's going to be coming from there. So a lot of us live our lives like this. We keep certain areas of ourselves, certain areas of life, certain areas of our connections with other people. We keep these things kind of hidden, hidden away, obscured, so that we don't have to look at them. But by doing that, what we do is we almost guarantee constant chaos in these areas in our lives, because we never get into them, we never get underneath them, we never realize why these things make us feel this way. Anyway, I don't know how I got into that. Whatever I was saying. I think I got to that from preachers anyway. But this is what I'm saying anyway, about, having a spirituality without symbolism. For me, that's the preferred thing. So for me, just to talk about this is life we're talking about. It's a lot simpler than saying we're talking about data or whatever, because that's what we're talking about. And we're talking about. I say we're talking. It's basically me me talking. I mean, other people are welcome to talk and contribute or whatever. But basically, these talks are me expressing different random ideas about life. Actually, it's not a teaching. It's not some kind of canonical teaching that's been passed generation from generation. Nobody passed any teachings to me, right, as a child or whatever. Um, well, maybe a few wise words here and there. It's not that kind of thing. It's just an expression of, feelings, thoughts, ideas about life. And are they absolutely correct? I don't know. What is absolutely correct? It's opinions. Everything is an opinion. So if these things that's said here can kind of give people some kind of, can push them a little bit in the right direction. And when I say right direction, I don't mean that there is some kind of like, oh, right direction that everybody must follow. Like, okay, come here, I'm going to show you the correct direction and go there. No, it's not like that. This direction is completely different for every person. This direction will go a completely different way, for everybody that's walking this path of connecting with themselves, being natural, working on themselves, observing themselves, accepting themselves. So when I say right direction, it's not some specific thing that I'm trying to suggest here. You know, because this has already been done. There are already these very structured linear paths, there are already these commandments, and do this and not do this, and so many people have tried to tell us how to live, what to do, what not to do, and whatever. How many people have told us to be ourselves, right? So it's not even so much that the words themselves are necessarily going to be helpful or instructive or accurate. The idea is more the spirit behind what is is shared here, right? Because that's really it's the spirit of freedom, right? And again, freedom is not this specific thing that we do this, and this, and then we become free, right? We follow this instruction, that instruction, that instruction. We go on this step, this step, this step, and then we become another one of these, cardboard copy saints that speak the same way, dress the same way, whatever. Eventually end up having all the same scandals and all of this kind of stuff. No, it's not that this intelligence behind the freedom, like for instance in my life, whatever this intelligence was that was, pushing me, at different times to, in one moment to go this way, or in another moment to let go of this, or in another moment maybe to sit in silence, or in another moment to see things that way. That intelligence, which was, guiding me and still guiding me on that direction, that exists within all of us. That's the real teacher. That's the real guide. So really what I'm talking about or sharing here, it's really in, praise or adoration for that thing, that life, that intelligence, that natural principle. And again, you can't you can't point to it and say that's it, that's the thing that he's talking about here. No, but you have to get the vibe of it, because it's not this word or that word, or it's not the way that, okay, I'm supposed to be a spokesperson for this thing. No, it's not the specific way that I happen to live, or specific way that I happen to talk, or specific way that I do things. No, because for each and every person, that intelligence has a completely different, unique way of expressing itself. So that's why you have to be very careful on this path, because at some point we may feel drawn to unlocking that intelligence within ourselves. We may be drawn towards opening up, going deeper into ourselves, having a more expansive experience of life. And we may feel that I need help in this area, I need guidance in this area, or I want to be connected or related in some way to someone who's fully, living that, someone who's fully, burning as that, like a sun. And this is why we have to be careful. This is why it's kind of can be a bit tricky, this path, is that's fine. That's absolutely fine. There is a stage on this path where it's helpful to be able to connect to somebody or something, or it could even be through a book or whatever, that strongly radiates that natural fire of life in its own way. Again, I'm not saying that is going to look the same way in each person, that fire has been kindled within. It's not going to look the same in each one. But the tricky thing is that from that person, let's say, or that people, if we connect to different people that are like that. And yeah, these we're talking about people who have traditionally been called masters, gurus, guides, whatever, natural beings, avatu. Word doesn't matter. These are just different labels. Those kind of beings themselves, they don't care what they're called or known as, or titles, or all of this nonsense. The tricky thing is that we want to be able to have that natural intelligence cultivated within us, amplified within us through this connection. But we don't want to just be reconditioned around that person's ideas, right? That person's culture, that person's way of being. This is the difficult thing, about this path, because of path of being connected to, guru, whatever, master. In that we see, okay, this person, whoever, shining very brightly, powerful presence and whatnot. And because that shining, that brightness is happening through their body, through their personality, through their words, through their specific way of being, through everything, through their culture. This person could be an Indian, or this person could be Tibetan. And then we might get the idea that, oh, this thing solely is belonging to, Tibetan Buddhists, or this thing is solely belonging to, Indian Hindus or whatever. We may get these ideas. So the trick is not to get that life principle, that powerful life principle that's burning in them, shining in them, not to get that confused with their specific way of being, because that's just a specific way of being. That's just what it is, right? So this is the difficult thing when we have this kind of connection on it, or we get connected to tradition or path or masters or whatever. It's not to become conditioned by their so-called teachings or guidance. It's not to become programmed or indoctrinated into their so-called teachings and guidance. It's to allow that presence, whatever it is, to let us connect with ourself. That's the meaning of that beautiful line from that song or whatever it is in Hindi, Jyotish Jyotish Jagao, Sadhguru Jyotish, yeah, whatever it is. It means let my lamp be lit by your lamp, right? But our lamp, whatever it is, if it gets lit by another lamp, it's gonna burn. It's gonna burn in its own way. It's not going to be a carbon copy of the other one. So this is the difficult thing here. That how to connect to masters, teachings, traditions, paths, and have that fire amplified within us without becoming like like a cult follower, or someone indoctrinated into something, or someone who then gets these very rigid ideas about, oh, this my master, this my tradition, things have to be like that. If it's not like that, then it's not real spirituality, and all of this rubbish, right? And then we instead of becoming more open-minded, we're becoming even more and more of a blockhead, even more and more of a brickhead. Instead of brain inside there, it's just like concrete, just slowly turning in there. That's not the idea. How to do this? Again, there's no way I could tell you how to do this. That intelligence within you has to make it happen. If this thing is happening, or if this thing has been happened, you see, look, I've not been burning bright. I've just been mimicking somebody else's teachings. I've just been copying somebody else. I've just been treating like a guru like an idol, or like someone in a boy band or something that I'm following, right? Even if somebody tells us this, it doesn't matter. We have to see this ourselves. We have to have that thing within ourselves. And that life principle, when it activates, when it speaks to us, it knows very, 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 very clearly what to do at what time. That I can say from experience. This this life principle for me has been active for, you know, longest time, and it's always been very clear cut about when I have to do certain things, when to change certain things, when to break the comfort zones, when to just let things fall away, right? So again, it all comes down to that, whether that thing within us is active or not. Because if that thing's not working, then it doesn't matter what anybody says to you. You could receive the clearest, most precise guidance from the most, powerful master, it won't make any difference because you won't be hearing it. The receptivity won't be there. And you'll just change that to whatever you want to hear. You'll just hear what you want to hear. And this is a trait, by the way, of us human beings. We don't hear what we hear what we want to hear. We're very, very good at this. We're very, very good at building these compartments in our mind, blocking out what is and just seeing things how we want to see things. And then what happens is that life builds this pressure up and up and up and up against this wall we've built. On one side of the wall is what is, and then on the other side is how we want things to be and how we see things. And the pressure of what is builds up, builds up, builds up, and eventually crashes this wall. And that's what we call our times of crisis, our times of tragedy, our times of disillusionment. Right? When what is overwhelms how we've pigeonholed a neatly compartmentalized life. So that's the point here. My way of approaching this thing from my end is to be as minimal as possible. Right. I living in very ordinary, simple way now. I don't want to create anything. I don't want to pass off what I'm saying as some kind of teachings or some kind of wisdom or anything like this. I don't care. All of these things are meaningless for me. For me, that life itself, that's enough. That life, however it wants to express itself, however the life situations go, I accept it. It's enough for me. I don't need anything in addition to that. Right. But it's not always like that. So this is one of the difficult things on this path, because just because we walk into the doors of so-called spirituality doesn't mean we're walking towards liberation or freedom yet. We can equally just be walking towards more and more bondage. We can just be walking into another dream. Maybe we've had our dream of being a worldly person who's obsessed with, worldly experiences, wealth, whatever, drinking, drugs, whatnot. We can exchange that, and we can start our spiritual dream. Who's obsessed with spiritual ideas? Who's obsessed with idea of becoming a master sage? Obsessed with meditation? Obsessed with going up through different levels and grades of spiritual evolution? We can start that dream, and we can dream as long as we like. We can dream as long as we want. There's nothing wrong with it, right? But the real waking up, the real dissolving, it feels like fire all the time. It's not comfortable. It's not comfortable at all. It's like walking on hot coals. And it gets hotter and hotter, and this heat pushes you to find comfort not in the fact that, oh, now my life situation has become comfortable. Now my relationship situation has become comfortable. Now my financial situation has become comfortable. Now my ego has become very comfortable. No. If you're really walking on this path, life will create problems in all of these areas. And life will push you to find comfort deep within yourself, deep within that still point within yourself. And that's when you start becoming free. When you start finding unconditional comfort in your being, in your soul, not because of this, because of that. then what happens? Then you start becoming more and more immune to the changing winds of life, the changing karmic movement of life. These things will still go on. You'll still have fears, but you won't be as bothered. You'll still think, oh, I don't want this to happen. But when it happens, you won't be as bothered that it happened. You'll still have desires. But whether these desires are fulfilled or whether they are fulfilled in the way that you want them to be fulfilled, again, you won't be as bothered because you've found this little space within yourself, this space of comfort, the cave, shelter, which is totally protected, totally walled off, sealed away from this changing winds, changing tides of life. And the art of this is to you deepen in that, but at the same time, on an outer level, you're still living naturally. You're still living fearlessly. You're still there in life. You're still engaged in life. You're still engaged with other people where it's necessary. And you'll be prodded. You'll be prodded to do this and do this, do this, do this at different times. I was speaking to somebody earlier about this, about how I always talk about action and acceptance. I'm usually saying with this that this inner tension, inner suffering, inner contraction that we usually feel in life, it's usually there when either we're not accepting something within ourselves, not accepting something within others, not accepting something in the life situation, or we're not taking action where action needs to be taken. We're not confronting something that needs to be confronted. And these two things are two halves of a whole. And the inner side of this, the inner kind of passive side of this, is the acceptance. And the acceptance the acceptance brings you into that space, the soul, that deep inner place of comfort. The acceptance is the doorway into that. But that's only one half of it. That's the inner side. The outer side of that must come with that is that times come when we have to act, when we have to change something, when we have to walk away from something, when we have to transform something. Both of these two things have to come together because some scenarios will be there in life that our acceptance is just not strong enough to deal with it. It's like something's knocking on our door. We're accepting, but yet we can't. It's like an irritation, right? So some things demand action on our part. And the things that usually demand action it's action which pushes us again out of our comfort zone. It pushes into expansion. Because why aren't we acting? Why aren't we doing what needs to be done? Fear, right? Fear. So on the one hand, one half of this acceptance, other half fearless expression, fearless action. When these things come together into like a seamless flow, then that's perfection. Then you're really sinking in to the depths of life. When these things come together, when these things become one, you won't know, day and night will be the same for you then. Whether you're at home in comfy meditation room, incense, candles, pictures of masters, or whether you're on a crowded tube or subway or rickshaw or whatever, both of these things will feel the same for you. When you're established in that, there'll be no differences for you anymore. you'll be in this whole dynamic space where you're not withdrawn from life. You're not hiding away anywhere. Not at all. You're in life, but you're totally content. You're totally accepting. And in the moments where you have to act, in the moments that require movement, action, decision, change, you're there, instant. You do it. Right. This is this is what we're going for on this path. And again, life is the best teacher to make this happen. Bear that in mind and then go out in life. If you don't see any problem, then there's no problem, right? If you get to the point where you think, well, there's nothing wrong, things are fine, then things are fine. Then forget all of this stuff. You know, we're not just having all of this talk as a hobby. You know, people seeking something, people feeling like there's more, people feeling like there's a more whole way to be. So, and we may have periods where we may feel, oh yeah, things are fine now. I don't need my acceptance and action and whatever. These periods can also come, and then what can happen is that something big can change, and again our life is turned upside down. And that's life the teacher, life in its fierce mode, teaching us, flipping the tables, and then we're back into the same game, accepting again. Something happens, we've got to accept. Maybe there's action that we've got to take as well. So that's it really. Again, that's the fundamental things I want to talk about. But yeah, in terms of my journey and stuff, this change, reinvention, it's a constant thing, and not because of some kind of restlessness or a constant desire to be something different, but change, reinvention is innate in life itself. Go out into the garden, look at the way different plants reinvent themselves season after season. They have one way of being in the winter, another way of being in spring, another way of being in summer, another way of being in autumn. Right. After going through so many cycles of seasons, finished. They merge back in with everything else. Same with us. If we live naturally, we'll have a way of being in this part of our life, we'll have another way of being in the next part of our life, and so on and so on and so on. And when we get onto this track of connecting with our essence, connecting with this pure essence of life, pure fire of life, these seasons can seemingly on the surface they can appear more erratic, but if we're following that inner flow, that inner guidance, then things will work out. You know, I always see amazing, like how life takes care of me and has been taking care of me. And long time ago, I even stopped asking it to take care of me, take care of me. This also happens because your surrender becomes complete. You say, whatever happens, I don't mind. You know, once you really connected, once you really realize who you are, then you just whatever happens, I'm fine with it. Whatever needs to happen needs to happen. I'm life. What can happen to me? What can anybody do to me? Nothing. Right? Until then, we have to have a bit of faith, trust, and on my path anyway, life was always rewarding this trust and faith and surrender in spades. So I didn't want to talk too long today. I'm a bit running out of things to say. If anyone wants me to speak on anything else, I can. If you write me in box, but otherwise, just wanted to share these things today and really give this reminder again with this path that this path is 100% our own. It's not about some path, some tradition, some God, some teaching, some guru. We can use whatever we want to help us, but to help us what exactly? Not to help us become a follower, not to help us become a cult member, not to help us become a disciple. It help us become more and more and more authentically ourselves, where we can breathe into ourselves, though, that when we speak, there's power behind our words. There's force behind our words. Because they're authentic. They're honest. When we do something, there's power behind it. It's not a little kind of, oh, should I, shouldn't I? What will they think? What will this person think? What will that person think? What will the culture think? What will the community think? No, strong, decisive action. When we act like this, when we live like this, life feels different. We don't feel so small anymore. We feel more powerful. We're like a lion. Lion then, right? Proud, but not in an egotistical sense. Because the egotistical pride is just a mask of insecurity, right? It's just a mask of insecurity. People don't want to face their own sense of insecurity. People don't want to face their own sense of not being enough. So they create a mask that they're amazing. Clever, right? Problem is with this mask that it's got holes in it and things happen in life that makes it more unsturdy and uncomfortable. This pride that I'm talking about, this lion-like pride, it's you can't shake it. It's when you're living from that really, really deep, honest, authentic place in yourself, you nobody can argue with you about your way of living, your way of doing things, because you're not doing it because of something. You're not doing it to get something. It's just a pure, honest, direct expression of your own being. And this way of expressing, this is the way of expressing of real masters, the real sages. It creates an earthquake. It creates an earthquake in this world. That's why these people, all these beings, some of them we now treat them as gods, they're still spoken about. People still read about their lives. People still read what they said. Their words still have some juice in them. Why? It's not, anyone can say a little clever sequence of words. Anyone can do a few interesting things. Anyone can do maybe some brave things or whatever in their life. But the place inside of themselves, where they were living from, when somebody lives like this, when somebody lives from this place, it creates ripples. It creates ripples in the, whatever you want to call it. Everything's a ripple. Everything's a wave, creates very powerful ripples that lasts through time. This is where we want to be. We want to become a powerful wave, a powerful ripple. And then, this feeling that we all have, seeking, looking for something, it's that life doesn't feel quite right somehow. When we get into that state, when we get into that space, life feels right, finally. Life feels complete. When death comes, when the death of physical body comes, that will also feel right. That will also feel complete. That'll be like the cherry on the cake at that point, right? Fully merging. Anyway, I've said enough. That's what I wanted to say today. I didn't know what I wanted to say before, but as usual, it is what it is.